Like if somebody had showed that to you and you didn't know what it was, would you eat it?
No.
Yeah. But now that you've
It,
tasted it,
I would definitely eat.
yes, I think
It looks
so.
disgusting, but it tastes like heaven.
Welcome to Curious World History. I am Colleen.
And I'm Albert.
Oh, Albert. Today we're going to do the yummiest episode we have
Yeah.
done thus far. What's it on?
Chocolate.
Just chocolate or the
The history
the
of chocolate.
history of chocolate? We actually did a little more research and effort than we normally do for an episode with this one. What did we do?
We went to Chocolate Dream.
To Chocolate Dream. Yep.
Yeah. And we got some Dubai chocolate.
Dubai chocolate, that's right, because that is sort of the modern day element of chocolate, so a new version of chocolate. And what else did we do?
We took a Taza chocolate tour.
We took a Taza chocolate tour. And Taza is a really interesting company. They're local.
Yeah,
right?
it's a brand that makes chocolate.
Not only do they make chocolate, but they make fair trade chocolate. We're going to learn why that's important in this episode. So would you like to get us started with the history of chocolate?
Sure. Okay. So, from 1500 BCE to 400 BCE, the Olmecs of present-day Mexico were the first known to domesticate cocoa.
That is interesting. Now, I found that it goes back potentially as far as 3300 BC, so 3300 BC.
Huh?
And it's interesting. In my research, I found that there is sort of a partnering of two different histories happening at the same time. There's the history of chocolate, but there's also the history of the cacao tree. And the earliest examples of that tree being domesticated, because that's really ultimately how chocolate is made, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I saw was that in 3300 BC, there's evidence that the trees were being domesticated in the Amazon area, so a spot of South America that's now Ecuador. This is before all those countries were established. And they found evidence of residue in the ceramics of the Mayo Chinchipe people. And so they saw in the ceramics, they of course don't know how this was being used, but they saw evidence of the starch grains, the theobromine, which we learned that at Taza, that theobromine means food of the gods, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they found fragments of the DNA specific to the cacao tree all in the ceramics. So they know they were doing something with it,
Yeah.
but we just don't know exactly how.
And the Olmecs, they likely drank a bitter, cocoa beverage during rituals.
During rituals. So I saw the same kind of thing, and I saw that continued not just from the Olmecs, but it continued on for a lot of other people. Before the Olmecs, there were the Macayan people. And then after the Olmecs, there was a different group of people. I'm wondering if you have the same group. So continue, sir.
Okay. And then from 250 CE to 900 CE, the Mayans called it XOCOLATL.
Mm-hmm.
And it translates to bitter water.
Bitter water, yeah. Well, because chocolate is bitter or cacao is bitter
Yeah.
before you sweeten it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And before you put it through a lot of the processes that we've learned about in our research here. So I think the way that we eat chocolate today, probably if we ate what they ate, we would be like, ooh, that's a bit much. Although it might be kind of similar to coffee in some ways, because coffee's bitter before you put sweeteners in it, right? So that's interesting. What else did you find?
And they mixed ground cocoa beans with water, chili, and spices to make a frothy drink used in ceremonies and as a symbol of
prestige. Do you know what prestige is?
No.
It's like a sign that you are fancy or you have status, like you are maybe important.
Yeah.
So that's what I was reading as well, that throughout history, going into the Mayans and then later into the Toltecs and the Aztecs, that we think that it was used primarily by people who had status, people who were seen as important within the tribe, right, within the group. And I read the same thing, that they took the beans. And the first evidence apparently they have of how it was prepared, according to everything I read, was from the Mayans. So everything before the Mayans, we're not really sure what's happening, but the Mayans took the beans, they fermented them, they dried them, and they roasted them, which is, by the way, what we learned they do today at Taza, right? They work with farmers who are in different places, and that's what the farmers do. And then the husks are removed, and we learned that that happens at the Taza factory. Right? So they take it's almost like the shells come off, right? Then they pound the nibs with stones on a stone, stone surface over a fire here, the Mayans do. That made a paste, and the paste was hardened into solid chunks.
And it looks like Nutella.
That's right. It kind of looked like Nutella,
Does
but
not taste like.
Does not taste like Nutella. And then they broke up the chunks and added water and heated it. And that's when you're saying then they took other spices and things like that and added it to it. I read that even some folks were adding flowers, like to give a little floral taste. Get chili, I read. So it's really interesting what they were doing with that. So then what do you see next?
And the 13,000s to the 15,000.
So this is this is CE. So let's establish what that means when we're talking about dates. BCE is before 0, right? So if we go all the way back, we're in 2025 today. If we rolled back into the 1900s, the 1800s, and so on and so forth to 0, then we go in the other direction, right? It's 1 BCE. We're going backward in time. 2 BCE, 3 BCE. So the first, the history we're seeing is going back over 5,000 years. So we went all the way up to now we're in the 1500s. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
The Aztecs, they valued cocoa so highly that cocoa beans were used as a currency, which we learned about.
That's right. And so, you know what I heard? The Spanish conquistadors, so these are the conquerors that came from Spain and they went into Mexico and other areas. They noted the currency value. So in 1545, 1 cocoa bean could buy a small tomato. 30 beans could buy a small rabbit, and 100 beans could buy a turkey hen.
Oh,
isn't that interesting?
A turkey hen?
A turkey hen would be a turkey, but it's the female turkey so that she can lay eggs, right?
Okay.
Or give other turkeys.
And emperor, I have no idea.
This is one of Montezuma.
Yeah. Drank large quantities of cocoa beans mixed with spices, and believed it gave strength and vitality.
Vitality, right? Which, do you know what vitality means?
No.
It's like life, right? It's giving people strength and life, like the ability to live, to be strong that way. So what I read was, this is pretty interesting, after the Spanish invasion of Mexico, which, by the way, was very difficult for the people who were living in Mexico at the time. This happens again and again and again in history. There are people living in a particular area, and then an invader comes in because they typically want something there. They want the land. They might
want... when Christopher Columbus went to America.
That's right. Same thing with Columbus, right? And it was pretty bad for the people who were here. It's horrible, in fact, what happened. Same thing happened with these poor Mexicans in the 1500s. But I heard that in roughly 1520, Hernan Cortez, who was a Spanish conquistador, he may have been the first European to encounter chocolate when he saw it in the court of Montezuma II. So he saw all of these dishes being brought in and everybody drinking this fancy thing. So he knew this had value,
and
right?
he brought it back to Spain.
And he brought it back to Spain, that's right. So, by the way, before we even move on, I'm going to tell you something I learned that was pretty interesting, that there is some discussion over the last several years. During the 9th through the 12th century, so this is rolling back 300 years from the time of Montezuma, they found cocoa making its way into what is now the southern United States. So it was likely done through trade process, right?
Yeah.
Because there were no cocoa trees living there. The cocoa trees grow near the equator, as we've learned. Right?
Tropical.
What's that?
Tropical.
In a tropical area. That's right. And they like to grow in the hillsides, right? In the mountains and everything.
High up.
High up. And what's interesting, I thought, that we learned about the cocoa trees is that the fruit isn't near the top of the tree. It's sort of near the middle, so it's protected from the sun, right? Cocoa trees like to grow sort of in a shady area, and the fruit is lower than I was anticipating to keep it away from birds and other stuff like that.
And it's a lot, and it's like purple, brown,
Yeah,
green,
different colors.
yellow.
Yeah, it's not the color that they're looking for, like we're typically looking for in an apple or a strawberry or something. It's the size, they told us. Roughly the size of a deflated football, right? It looks kind of like a deflated football. So between the 9th and 12th century, cocoa's made its way into the southern United States, where it was used by the ancestral Pueblans. So, and I read recently, and this is being debated, that they found really early evidence of cocoa being used in Utah. Right? So that, we'll call it modern day Utah, right? Because back then it was not called Utah.
Yeah, it was called.
It was a series of tribal civilizations who were living there. So very interesting. Okay, sir, please continue.
Yeah. And Europeans found it bitter.
Yeah.
But when sugar and cinnamon were added, it became a fashionable luxury.
That's right. It became a fashionable luxury then. So they were using it. I also heard just similar to how the Mayans and everybody else who was living in what is now modern day Mexico, they were using it as a medicine as well, right? Because that was what the ancestral Mexicans now were using it for, and so that remained throughout its travels to Europe. It was being used that way. It was also being used again for the people who were seen with status, right? They had prestige, because now they were bringing something fancy and exotic to the table. And then I also read that they were using all kinds of things in addition to sweeteners to flavor it. Did you read any of the other things? Like, they had been using honey and vanilla and chili and flowers, and then you mentioned the Spanish they bring cinnamon. I read this really weird thing was being used. It was called ambergris. In Europe, they were using it to flavor it. Ambergris is this waxy substance. Ambergris literally translates to gray amber. So it looks like amber, which is like a substance. It's like a hardened sap.
Yeah.
Right? You've seen it before. It's a stone. Well, it would look like gray amber. It's a waxy substance that's found in the gut of a sperm whale.
Ew.
Yeah. Apparently, when it comes out initially, it stinks like fecal matter, which is poop, and it also smells like the ocean, like fish and everything.
So they have to kill the whale?
Yes, they were killing whales a lot in that time period.
Which is now illegal.
Now it's illegal, but they were using the blubber for like oil. They were using the bones for things, so anyhow, they would take that substance and age it, and over time it would become like a sweeter kind of substance. So they were taking this weird stuff out of a sperm whale's gut and using it to flavor it.
Did the people know what it was coming from?
Yes, they did. It was also, that was a pretty common way to use that, apparently. And they were also using jasmine. So this is now the 17th century we're talking, right?
Yeah.
We're in the 1600s. Also, I was reading that the Spanish invaders, they're using now African slaves that they're bringing in to do all of this hard work, because harvesting cocoa beans or cacao beans, which we learned is, those words are sort of used interchangeably, right?
Yeah.
It means roughly the same thing. It's a very difficult process. So they were using slave labor until that was outlawed in Brazil. So what did they do when that was outlawed? And at this point, now it was primarily a Portuguese group of farmers who were doing this. they were bringing African slaves to Brazil, which the Portuguese had invaded Brazil. And when they're not allowed to bring the slaves anymore, they just bring their trade to Africa. They start doing that work in Africa where they can enslave people there. So the story of chocolate is the story of the cacao tree, but it's also the story of enslaved people. Because for a long time, even today, people are being forced to do this kind of hard labor. So why don't you continue? Because we've got a little bit more of the story of chocolate before we can kind of get into what fair trade means and why it's there.
So in the 1700s, chocolate houses, similar to coffee houses, appeared in London and Paris, serving the wealthy.
That's right. So now it's becoming kind of a fancy, fun thing to do, right? I read that in that time period, too, the Spanish Jesuits are importing and making chocolate. And also that it's starting to get consumed more as bars and solids, right? And that they're using it in desserts in France, and they're using it in savory foods in Italy. But fun fact, although I'm sure Pope Clement the 14th didn't think this was a fun fact, Pope Clement the 14th was rumored to have been killed by the Jesuits who he was expelling from areas. So Jesuits are a kind of priest. They killed him by putting poison in his chocolate, according to rumors. Now, it's never been confirmed, but so apparently chocolate was used for all kinds of things. Okay.
And in 1828, Dutch chemist
I'm going to go with Conrad Johannes van Houten.
Yeah. We don't speak Dutch.
We don't speak Dutch. We don't speak any of the early like Mayan languages or the Olmecs or anything. So we apologize to anybody if we have mispronounced these words.
He invented the cocoa press.
That's right.
Which removed much of the fat, which is cocoa butter, and created cocoa powder, making chocolate easier to mix and less expensive.
That's right. We call this Dutch chocolate, right? And it's still sold today, but this really revolutionized how chocolate was manufactured. Okay, keep going.
And in 1847, the first solid chocolate bar was created by Joseph Fry and Son in England by mixing cocoa butter, sugar, and cocoa powder.
Interesting. So they're now starting to make these like probably more easy to consume kinds of chocolate. I read that in the early 1800s, because chocolate is coming up in a lot of different places simultaneously, right? This is not something that's happening in one place where one person is trying to revolutionize it. It's happening in a lot of different places. I read that in the early 1800s, an Italian chocolatier named Bozelli creates a machine, and it was based on the Mesoamerican processes of grinding beans on curved stone. So Mesoamerica was like that area where we were talking about the Mayans and the Olmecs and the Toltecs and the Aztecs and all of these folks. That's where they lived. So he basically creates a machine that mimics their process on curved stones. And that in 1870, Rodolphe Lindt, who is a Swiss chocolatier, gets one of those machines and makes the chocolate smoother through a process called conching. And it's called conching because the early machinery, the stuff that he was using, looked like a conch shell, which anybody who's ever been to a beach, on the eastern part of the United States, or I'm sure other areas like the Caribbean, you would see small conch shells or larger ones.
And it improved the flavor.
Absolutely. And it sometimes took up to 78 hours, they said. So it's going through this whole process. Before that, it was very gritty. And we had that gritty experience, but it was kind of, I thought it was great. I liked it.
It was really good.
From Taza.
Yeah, my favorite is cinnamon and vanilla.
Yeah, so they flavored it. As a matter of fact, if anybody is a true chocolate lover who's listening to this, we highly recommend the chocolate from Taza because it is a bean to bar process.
Yeah, and the tour doesn't give you that. I mean, it gives you actually a lot of chocolate, kind of.
Yes, they do. You get to taste a lot of different kinds.
And there is a samples counter.
That's right.
With like 30 chocolates.
That's right. And I read during this conching process that Lindt was using from Boselli's machine, it made it milder tasting, less acidic because some of the acids came out. And water would change the process. So rather than washing the machines with water, they washed the conching machines with cocoa butter so that water wouldn't get involved in the process. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
In 1867, Swiss chemist, I don't speak Swiss.
You don't speak Swiss, neither do I, but I'll give it a try. Henri Nestle. And Nestle now is a company, I don't know where they're based out of, but it's a very common company today.
And they developed powdered milk, which when combined with chocolate led to the invention of milk chocolate by Daniel Peter in 1875.
Okay. So that sounds yummy. I read that large-scale production during the Industrial Revolution, so this is getting into the late 1800s here. This is when factories are being built, right? So middle of the 1800s into the late 1800s is this beginning of a change, right? We talked about this in the Milkman episode. Everybody starts to move toward the city. A lot of people are moving toward the city to work in the factories. So large-scale production during that time period meant a huge difference in the production of chocolate because now one worker in 1890 could produce 50 times more than someone before the industrialization of chocolate.
Whoa.
So that means scale now is happening, right? You can make more of it. What happens when you make more of something due to scale? Do you know what happens to the price?
It goes down.
That's right. It goes down. And the reason is because the more of something that is available, the less competition there is for each piece, right? Okay, good. So now let's keep going.
And in the early 1900s, famous brands emerged. Hershey's in the U.S., Cadbury. If
you've never had Cadbury chocolate, especially from England, not the Cadbury made here, but the Cadbury made there, it's quite good.
And Nestle is a brand in Switzerland.
Yeah.
And later, Mars chocolate, which I've never tasted, but I've heard of.
Yes, you've definitely had Mars chocolate before. In chocolate bars, like candy bars from like Halloween.
Oh, okay. Went from luxury to an affordable everyday treat.
But part of how they made it like a more affordable treat too? Do you remember what we learned about how much chocolate needs to be actually in a chocolate bar in order to call it chocolate? So actually cacao pieces. How much cacao needs to be in there?
10%.
10%, that's right. So some of these companies only have 10 or 11 or 12% cacao or cocoa in their chocolate bars. But you and I both found that we really love Taza, and Taza will have anywhere from 40% at the
44
lowest.
Is the lowest.
Was their lowest
to
44?
75.
Yeah, and I think they have even more than that. The cacao nibs, I think.
Oh, yeah.
That's probably all, right?
That was disgusting.
100%. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting. They, part of what they're doing with some of those companies is they're putting some cheaper products in there that'll change the flavor, obviously, but it also cheapens the cost of them making each bar.
And in World War One and Two, chocolate was included in soldiers' rations, further cementing its popularity worldwide. And in the mid-1900s, mass production and global marketing expanded. Candy bars, boxed chocolate, and cocoa drinks became household staples.
That's right. As they're making it cheaper, one of the things that continues to happen is slave labor, right? So they are taking people who have been kidnapped and they're being forced to do the work, or they're tricking people into working for very little money, right? So, and that continued to happen. So what I read is in the 1990s, fair trade emerges, and this allows small farms that are involved who weren't seeing any of the profits of the big companies to start getting some of those profits. And it also means that the companies take some responsibility in monitoring the working conditions of the people who are working on those farms.
And Taza chocolate They give like $500
Above.
extra.
That's right. When they make a purchase at Taza of cacao beans, they're paying $500 more than the minimum fair
Yeah.
trade price. The other thing they do is they go and they visit.
Yeah, and sometimes they do it.
That's right. And sometimes that's right. They bring their workers down there to do some of the work, and they try to do an exchange so that the workers from those farms too are coming up and learning how to make chocolate in the factory. So I'm just going to briefly go through some of the agreements that are made in the fair trade process. There are only 4 of them. The first one is fair trade standards assist farmers to organize as cooperatives and associations so they can earn fair prices for their products. So in some cases, they're cutting out the middleman, right?
Yeah.
The person who's the trader in between the farmer and the big business. Then fair trade certification organizations regularly inspect cocoa producers to ensure they meet child labor standards, because in many cases, children have been used. That continues today, by the way. Fair trade acts immediately when infractions are found to protect the children involved and secure their safety. And third, fair trade standards promote environmental sustainability in producing cocoa crops. They prohibit the use of dangerous agrochemicals and GMOs. You know what GMOs are?
No.
Genetically modified organisms, I believe. We have to see what that is, but GMO, yeah. And then fourth, fair trade price guarantees that farmers are paid a sustainable price for their product. In cocoa cooperatives, buyers also contribute money to community development, allowing cocoa farmers to increase product quality, build infrastructure, train workers, bring safe drinking water to their communities, and establish local health clinics and schools.
And from mass market candy bars to fine artisanal dark chocolates, chocolate spans all prices, all price ranges and styles. Variations include white chocolate, ruby chocolate, introduced in 2017 by Barry
Callebaut, I think is the name. It's a French name. I see it a lot, Callebaut.
And plant-based alternatives. Dark chocolate is recognized for antioxidants. While high sugar in mass market chocolate remains a health concern, chocolate is now used in drinks, craft beer, cocktails, cosmetics, and even savory cooking.
So with all of these things that we learned, did it help you appreciate chocolate more or less?
More.
Me too, because I know how much work now goes into that. And the person who gave us the tour yesterday, Gabriel, over at Taza, really helped me to appreciate the flavors and the texture more than I ever appreciated before, right? I know what I'm kind of looking for. I'm trying to use all of my 5 senses. Yes, they told us all about it, which was wonderful. So I thought maybe that we would bring it to today, after learning about all of this history, to a new kind of chocolate that was invented in the 21st century.
Yes.
And we're going to try it here, in fact. So in 2021, Sarah Hamouda, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, she was a British Egyptian engineer living in Dubai.
Egyptian.
That's right, British Egyptian. So she was from British and Egyptian families, right?
Oh.
Right? And she was pregnant and imagined. So when women are pregnant, I'm just going to tell you this, some women have strange cravings. In other words, they crave different kinds of flavors together that you wouldn't normally think about. It doesn't happen to every woman, but there are a lot of women who tell stories like this. She was pregnant and she imagined a combination of chocolate, pistachio, and Kanafa.
Which sounds disgusting.
It sounds weird, but it's a delicious Middle Eastern dessert. If you've never had kanafa, but I'm telling you right now, if you had a chance to try it, you would love it. It's got little bits of like crunchy, it's like this yummy crunchy thing in it. So she invents Dubai chocolate. So without further ado, do you want to be the first one to try it? Take a bite?
Sure. Okay.
Really?
Oh my god. It's so good.
Really? All right, I'm going to try it now. Oh, it is really good. I can't.
I can't really explain it. I'm gonna eat more.
It's got phyllo in it. My God.
It kind of tastes like a Kit Kat a little.
It does. Well, let's talk about what it looks like, because if somebody showed this to you, I'm going to just say this for the listeners. I just held this up to Albert to show him what it looks like, and he immediately swept in and took a bite out of it. No, stop. Now, describe what it looks like. First of all, before we took a bite, what did it look like?
So this one, it's like an inch.
Yeah, it's like
maybe.
probably just about an inch tall.
Yeah, and
by about 2.5 inches wide by maybe 4 or 5 inches long.
And there's some, what are those?
Yeah, those are pistachios. There's pistachios on top.
And in the center.
Well, what kind of chocolate would you say it is? Is that dark chocolate or is it milk chocolate? No, stop eating it.
And tasting. Okay.
I taste
a milk chocolate.
Yeah, it's definitely a milk chocolate. But then, when you open it up, what color is on the inside?
It looks like spinach.
It does look like a spinach blend.
No, not spinach. Spinach or zucchini.
Like a zucchini, like some kind of zucchini filling. Like if somebody had showed that to you and you didn't know what it was, would you eat it?
No.
Yeah. But now that you've tasted it.
Oh, I definitely eat it.
Yes, I think so.
It looks disgusting, but it tastes like heaven.
I think we're going to have to eat this before Katie finds out about it. You guys, don't tell anyone. What did we learn?
Chocolate is yummy.
Chocolate is yummy. I learned chocolate
Dubai chocolate is
Dubai
amazing.
chocolate is insane.
Okay, I'm gonna get some.
You're going to get some more?
Bye.
Yeah.